Am I back for more? Of course I am. Alright, and so this time we start off with Skull Dude walking across Guts' like wake of destruction as usual. And to this he gives a chef's kiss. I'm just kidding, he doesn't do that. But it seriously looks like from the panel like that's what he's doing. I'm not entirely sure what he's doing. He's got the pellet, something, I don't know. He's still just kind of keeping an eye on him for some reason. I'm sure we'll find out later on down the road exactly what's going on here, but for now he's just kind of following him. So then we get to see Guts, and his inner darkness is basically talking to him and tormenting him.
So many people you've killed. Children. Beasts of darkness.
But at the same time, when it shows up, you're like, oh, look at the cute little doggy. And I think it's really supposed to be intimidating, I'm sure. But really, honestly, this is showing us the torture that Guts puts himself through. I guess it could be taken as possibly ambiguous as to who's speaking to him, maybe the demons or some external forces, but I don't really think so. I really think this is more of an inner monologue that Guts is having with himself. But then the Holy Iron Chain Knights show up, yay! And let me tell you, this does not go the way that I thought it would. First off, I assumed that the Holy Iron Chain Knights were like, knights of any sort. And, you see female commander. In a man's world, female commander means that must be one badass chick. None of this is true. These are all fakes, frauds, figureheads, nobles that like to play dress up, basically, with like no actual training or experience whatsoever. And then there's this guy who's literally explaining that they're all pretty boys while he himself is kind of a pretty boy. But also keep your eye on this guy because there is something seriously fishy about this dude. But at the same point here, we're actually seeing we're witnessing a legitimate low point, serious low point for Guts, because he's at this point going to fight a bunch of, as I said, cosplay noblemen. And he is so tore up by everything that he's been through and all of his wounds, and he's literally standing there bleeding out, that he literally is going to lose to untrained nobodies. I mean, you want to talk about the lowest I've ever seen Guts in any story as far as skill set, ability, power level. There we go. This would probably be it. These are literally untrained idiots. But anyway, he's captured and he's taken prisoner by the Holy Iron Chain Knights. And now Farnace is going to go in and she's going to question him. And this scene's actually going to do a couple of things, quite a lot, as far as storytelling is concerned. And it's going to set up the super religious group is actually evil trope. And as far as tropes are concerned, is this ridiculously tropey? Of course it is. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like this one, just in general. So not gonna complain about this one like I, maybe would have if it was any other trope. Maybe it's because I was raised Catholic. Not that I have anything against the Catholic religion whatsoever. I mean, I still go to church when occasion calls for it. And I hold no ill anything against religion whatsoever. It's just a trope in general that when it pops up, I tend to have fun with it. Because it twists things in you can twist certain things which should have a certain moral value into really corrupted versions of themselves. And it works probably on a subconscious human level that if done well in the past I've had a lot of fun with. So I'm really looking forward to what Miura is going to do with this particular trope. And also this scene shows you just how unhinged Farnace is. There's something very seriously wrong with this girl. We just aren't quite sure what that is yet. But anyway, night falls and the brand calls the demons, and Puck brings the keys just to get him out of the cage. I mean, it was that was quick and easy, but moving right along. And then when Guts goes in to get his stuff so he can hit the road, the girl's in there whipping herself. And this just gives you another little glimpse into her mental state. And at this point, we're just kind of keeping track of okay, she's unhinged. Okay, now she's literally punishing herself with a cat of nine tails or whatever that thing is. And I literally just within 2 days of reading this, I was also reading A Brave New World. I know, I'm just getting around to reading Brave New World. Don't judge me. But the dude in that beats himself. Within 2 days of each other, I read this, and then I read about the scene of him doing it, and I'm like, oh, cool. What are the odds of that? But anyway, Guts grabs all of his stuff and her and jumps on his horse and runs away. And then there's a shot of, that pretty boy jumping on his horse, and he's chasing. Out of everybody there, the one person to jump immediately on their horse and chase is the pretty boy that I think is fishy. I'm just saying. I'm keeping an eye on him. He seems very proficient. Far more proficient than the rest of the group at literally any given moment. But anyway, the demons catch up and freak out Farnace as they're coming up around the horse, and Guts taunts Farnace about them, which I'm sure isn't helping her mental state at this point. And we also learn that she is so hard-headed, invested in her faith, and closed off that she can't even see Puck because he's a magical creature. But they all fall off the horse and the fight goes on, and Guts is literally just tearing through demons. And in the middle of the fight, the horse gets possessed and goes to attack Farnace. Which, by the way, this is absolute nightmare fuel. But this particular incident gives Guts flashbacks to Casca's assault, and suddenly I feel sorry for any demon within range of him. But this all resolves into kind of like the morning after, and it's the morning of truth or something like that. And it starts out like the opening panels. You get a couple of opening panels, and it starts out, and I think, ooh, this is going to be one of those quiet moments that I like so much, just by the artwork. Feels like it's hinting at that, but it definitely isn't that. Although what it is probably the most important chapter that we've had thus far about Farnace and who she is and her mental state, at least what kind of a person or character she is, because she gets possessed by a demon and has these overwhelming sexual urges towards Guts in a very sadomasochistic way. And the demon starts taunting her, and it starts mocking her for her punishment and her whipping herself. And she claims to do it she tells herself that she does it to punish herself, but she's actually pleasuring herself because she enjoys being whipped. It's very, very sadomasochistic. But anyway, so then she's climbing up on top of Guts and begging to be literally split open. But honestly, this whole little mini chapter section speaks to sexual desire in general, especially the ideas of sexual perversion or sexual deviance, and a strong religious group in which she's involved. Whatever word I'm looking for. And I use dramatic words like sexual perversion just to make a point here, because that's how they're viewed. They fall squarely outside of the norm, and by their nature, none of these things are inherently bad or inherently evil in any way, shape, or form, but if left unchecked and not handled properly and or expressed in a healthy way, can actually become all-consuming and dangerous. Also in here somewhere, that sneaky guy's going to show up, so just keep an eye on him. But anyway, seriously, these things, through ignorance and repression and not being dealt with or expressed or explored properly, can become extremely self-destructive and dangerous. And this is an interesting way of exploring that idea. And an argument could be made for, well, no, these aren't actually her innermost desires. She's only doing this just because she was possessed by a demon. But I would argue with that. I would say, no, that is not true. I would say these are absolutely her genuine inner desires and feelings, because Literally, the previous scene, she was sitting there looking at Guts, and she was thinking, oh, look how beautiful it is seeing him sitting there after the morning after. And now she's literally on top of him, crying and telling the other guy to kill him because she accidentally let him see, with the help of a demon, he accidentally got to see something inside of her that he wasn't supposed to see, or she didn't want him to see. So I would say no, it wasn't that. Yeah, sure, she did it because the demon possessed her, but the demon only brought out what was already there. Anyway, I'm predicting that this particular turn of events, and now what just happened between her and Guts and her feelings about, blah, 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 I'm predicting that this particular scene will actually make her more dangerous to Guts and the future of this story than if she were a good fighter. I'm just saying. I'm going to throw that one out there. But real quick, before the scene's over, our sneaky boy is going to draw on Guts, and Guts is going to draw back, and they appear to be quite evenly matched, which is why we've been keeping an eye on this sneaky little bastard. Not many people can do that. This is very suspicious. So something's going to happen with him, and I just don't know what, or when, or how. This guy's creepy, and I don't like him. And he's going to cause trouble in the future. And then he's just like, okay, have a nice day, and walks away. You're like, no, I really don't like you, and I don't think I want you to have a nice day. And honestly, I thought about stopping right here, because technically this is the chapter, right? I had the Lost Children chapter, and this was the Binding Chain, and this wrapped it up, and you're all done. And I thought that was too short. I can't. I got to read a little bit more. So anyway, moving on. This is basically setup for the next section. So we learn now that the plague is ravaging the land, and we get flashes to Midland, back to our old stomping ground, where the king is apparently still alive somehow, looking better than ever. And I feel like this guy is going to be important at some point for some reason, but I don't really know why. And the princess won't go see her dying dad, big surprise, and she's still harping over Griffith, big surprise. And then Zod's just a ripping and a tearing through stuff, just kind of slaughtering things, and lamenting the fact that nothing's strong enough, or he can't find anything strong enough to fight, which is, foreshadowing that we're going to eventually probably have some big old Guts and Zod, because we've been taunting, this is coming for a while. We got Zod popping up constantly in the background. We got Skull Knight constantly popping up in the background. Skull Knight is kind of like a friend, and Zod's kind of like a foe, I think. I don't know. Don't tell me. And then, of course, Guts' demon baby shows up, and he's going to speak some prophecy about what's about to happen in the story, or what's coming up. And he's going to show some images of Casca burning at the stake. And, I really don't like this guy. And he's more than welcome to just leave the story at any point. He constantly shows up, and I just don't like him. But this prompts Guts to go running back to Godo, in a big hurry. Of course, Casca's not there. Casca's missing. And Guts takes it out on literally everyone there. He screams at Rickert. He screams at the little girl. He just goes completely berserk. But he goes nuts. Just for, as he's in the middle of literally scolding everybody, Godo to be like, don't you dare. From his deathbed, he's going to yell at Guts, don't you dare. If you want to sit there and blame anybody for Casca being gone, you blame you, motherfucker. So now here, Godo's going to get a couple of really good scenes, or really good speeches. Starting with, he's just going to go on about, you left everyone you loved behind, and now you want somebody to blame, and you're going to stand there and blame it on everyone but yourself. And the one that really made my jaw hit the ground as I'm reading it was you are nothing but a sword soaked in blood with a crack in it, and that sword's about to break. I was like, oh, shit. That's intense, Godo. I just kind of paused on that page for a minute, like, damn. And this leads to Ooh, maybe one of my favorite. I mean, it's like a page and a half. It's not even long, but God, I loved it. The scene of Rickert showing Guts the graveyard that he's put together, and it's him practicing to be a blacksmith. But when he practices, he makes a sword. But when he makes that sword, he makes it for a specific member of the group that has passed, and then he goes and he puts it out in the field as a gravestone. And it's because that's what him and the Band of the Hawk and Guts would do for their fallen comrades in battle. And over the years, as he's done this, he's now created a graveyard for all of his fallen friends, and he shows it to Guts. It was one of the most beautiful things that I've seen, maybe in the whole run so far. I don't know, but God, I really liked not only the art and the panels of it, but just the whole feeling that you get just from the speech alone. It was one of my favorite moments, probably so far. But they lead Guts back down to where he's going to attempt to get, they tell him to get a good night's sleep, but that clearly doesn't happen. But as we're going down, I just want to bring up here, there is a real blink and you'll miss it section where they address Rickert, are you still afraid of elves? And he says, yes. But basically, it's just this one little panel addressing that Rickert has a fear of elves. And this means absolutely nothing to the story, really, other than the fact that it just reminds me of a comment in the comment section where somebody said something about Rickert being afraid of elves. And somebody else replied to this comment saying, I don't recall seeing anything about Rickert being afraid of elves. And this meant nothing to me, and I just kind of went over it. And then reading this, I get to this panel, I'm like, oh, holy shit, Rickert is afraid of elves. And it's addressed right here in this one little panel, at least so far as I've found. Anyway, comment section. Rickert is afraid of elves. Here is proof. Anyway, so we go through this whole section, and Guts has visions and nightmares, and he can't sleep. He has visions of his old friends and Casca and all this stuff, just for him to come around to the steely resolve of, it's not too late yet. And Godo gets up from his deathbed to go fix all the equipment, because this is what he does, his life's mission, maybe? I don't know. But it's super cool anyway. And then we get the next speech from Godo about the bloody rusted sword. And the next beat of that is, if it's a truly good sword and it's true and made from good steel, even if it dulls, it can be returned to the fire and it is sure to be reborn. Tell this to the fool. And he speaks it as he's forging the blade. It's another one of those just little powerful scenes that's really well done, well spoke, well placed. Very congratulations, Miura. I love some of these beats are just so really good, like just so good. And he doesn't speak it to Guts. He tells somebody else to tell Guts. He gave Guts the beat down face to face. But the next line, the one that's, okay, all right, the one that's a little bit softer and a little bit more encouraging, it's given to him indirectly because it's kind of that tough guy thing. But ultimately, Guts thanks them for everything and then heads off without even looking back. Meanwhile, or earlier, or something, Farnace is getting scolded for failing or something. It might be because she was too obsessed with Guts. I don't know. Either way, Farnace is getting in trouble. And she's sent off on her new mission, go investigate these visions that everybody's having. Apparently everybody in all these different kingdoms from all over the place are having the same vision of the same Hawk of Light. And let's be real, anything that you hear Hawk of Light for some reason sounds super evil. It just sounds like it should be a very positive thing, but to me it sounds like a very bad thing. But anyway, she's sent out on her new mission, and she's going to come across a kindly priest and his band of inquisitors. And now we're going to start to see what this band of religious zealots is really like. They start literally just punishing this group of people because they question them. How dare they have thoughts or opinions or speak in any way, shape, or form? Basically, for having an opinion where they were simply supposed to listen, hear, and obey, apparently. To the point where even Farnace looks uncomfortable with this particular interaction. And this chick's super unhinged. But we get a quick glimpse of somebody in the crowd, and you just might recognize her. But now we're on a path, and we're all on the same path, maybe different paths, to the same place. Now we're starting to see all the lines are going to end up coming together. Everything's starting to come into focus as to where this is all kind of heading, or at least that it's heading to something. And Guts is going to come across a town filled with warriors, and he's going to go basically on a little killing spree of said warriors just to test out his new gear. And if these people look familiar, that's because they're supposed to. Not that we've seen them before, their style should just be familiar. And they are being led by Eyeliner Guy. And they are apparently agents of the Bakaraka. Summon the Bakaraka! And I'm not gonna lie, at this point I'm starting to have a whole lot of fun with this art. Like, it just took me a minute to get kind of rolling with it. Like, the Lost Children at the beginning of the arc took me a long time to get on board with, but it paid off beautifully. Now we're going to move into this section of the arc, and it's basically going to be like a combination of introductions and build-up and tension building and a little bit of character work for Farnace, some callbacks to the King of Midland, and now we're getting callbacks to the Bakaraka and Eyeliner Guy. I'm just really here for it at this point. It wasn't the most grab you by the seat of your pants arc. As it goes on, I'm really starting to have a whole lot of fun with this particular arc. The further that this goes on, it feels like between the Black Swordsman and the Golden Age arc, Miura drew a box for this world and this story to exist in, and the first thing that he did was stepped outside the box, so you don't get a box, if that makes any sense. It's immediately going to define the world, define the story, define the rules that we're functioning under, and then step outside of it, so that you know immediately, don't get too comfortable with anything, even a storytelling style, because we're not really gonna let you have that. And I'm really just having fun with it. But anyway, we come to the Tower of Shadow, and this place just looks awful. And we get presented with a woman who's begging for food for her and her child. And we all know that this isn't gonna go well, because the last time somebody asked for anything from this priest, and now he's already told her no, and she's going to ask again. You're like, oh my, okay, here we go. Just for him to be super kind and understanding. And that was almost more terrifying than what we expected him to do, because now we know he's up to no good. There's no way we get the last scene of this guy just for this lady to basically act worse than the last group. And he's like, oh yes, dear, come with me. I'll help you. And you're like, no, you won't. Stop it. And they go inside, and he takes the baby, and they genuinely are like feeding the baby and gonna, nurture it back to health. And she's immediately guided into the torture dungeons to atone for her sins of asking for food for her baby. And you're like, there it is. Yep. And at this point, we've leaned into this evil religious group just about as far as we can lean into that trope, I think. Although every time I say something like that, it comes around to bite me in the ass. But I feel like we've hit peak evil religious group at this point. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, we get out to this group of real Robin Hood-esque prostitutes. It's a very strange sentence to speak. They're the merry band of prostitutes who split their money evenly amongst themselves because, trying to make it in this world. And to be fair and honest, trying to make it in this world would be pretty rough, and this actually might be a pretty decent business model for going about doing so. But they're also a group of women that are taking care of Casca at this point because they feel bad for her being a helpless woman and such. And there's this interesting scene of a man outside raving about the hawk or something, and he's got his little pole with the image of the hawk on top of it, and they have to kind of pull Casca back towards him because she's drawn to the symbol of the hawk for some reason, obviously, that she can't understand. She's kind of like a drooling idiot at this point, which I thought was an interesting narrative choice. I mean, she lost her memories, but at this point it's looking like she lost more than her memories, like all faculties whatsoever. Like, she's just literally like a drooling idiot, and the only noises she makes is like like, how far back does this memory loss go? Like, I mean, she's literally like an infant. So maybe it is just memory loss, but it's like a lot of it. But that leads into this horribly awful scene of this little girl, I'm assuming she's little, this little girl crying as she goes to collect water because we realize now that she's got the plague. Like, the inside of her mouth fills with pus or something. It's horrible. And she's standing there in the shadow of this torture tower, crying because she's going to die, and looking at the tower and wondering if God is really there. And if God is there, then why does this place feel so awful? And it's just hauntingly terrifying. Like, just the image of this girl sitting at the base of this shadowy, dark, evil tower, wondering, being told that this is where God lives or something, and wondering if God's there, and if so, why does it feel so awful? All while there's demons off in the distance that are slowly being drawn into Casca's brand. And these shots here are far more terrifying for me than any of the big epic battles and demons, and just these weird little moments are really the haunting and chilling scenes of it, for me at least. And this is where some of the storytelling becomes exceptionally powerful. But anyway, here in the shadow of the tower is where I'm going to leave off. This is where I decided to stop. It feels like we're really on the road to something, and I thought before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to call this quits for now. And for this particular section that I read, I was very happy. I enjoyed this very much, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this one an 8.5. And yeah, I mean, seriously, better than the Lost Children, I would say, or at least so far. I'm enjoying myself more than I think I did with the Lost Children. That one might have been a little bit more profound. We'll see where this one goes. I can't say that yet. But as far as enjoyment level goes, 8.5. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you next time.